The most recent areas of Genshin Impact are obviously gorgeous. You don't need me to tell you that. I mean, just look at this place, right? Like, come on. But the issue with the way that Genshin does areas and the way that it rolls out new areas is that very often we get these like gorgeous locations that we never have any real reason to go back to. For example, I completed Sea of Bygone Eras about a week after it came out, and this is the first time I've been back. And it's a shame because look at this place, right? So every once in a while I like to do what I'll be doing in this video for you guys, which is sort of a nostalgia tour of Genshin Impact's locations that have kind of been forgotten by time, or at least by me. Let's get to it. We'll start off in Mondstadt. There's not a huge amount of places in Mondstadt that I think are like super gorgeous and awesome, because it was the first area of the game obviously, but I do have a particular fondness for this location in Stormterror's Lair right here. I just love this tree. I love this like glowing water with the fireflies, and this little cave where there's a bunch of minerals to mine is a place that I came to mine minerals really early on in the game, and that's just some fun nostalgia. But yeah, this place is like really pretty, and it's in an area of the game that you wouldn't really associate with like the really pretty areas of the game. Because let's be honest, Stormterror's Lair is not great anymore. I mean, it doesn't look that awesome as it did when we first played. This is another location that I love going back to. It's the Heart of Durin here in Dragonspine. This is an area that I am like so sad we have never been able to go back to in an event or in some main story. I love Albedo, he has some of my favorite lore in the game, and I'm just itching for the day when we get to learn more about Durin, more about Albedo, more about Rhine-Daughter, and just be able to make more sense of like what the hell is going on here. It's also one of the first moments in Genshin Impact when Dragonspine originally launched where I was like, holy shit, this game actually is really fucking cool. Like, I already thought that, but like, this is one of those first early areas that you see and you're like, okay, wow, this is really rad. This is really, really rad. This is another of my favorite little nostalgic spots in the game. Does anybody remember this? I believe it's part of Jean's story quest. It's where Klee hides her like bomb treasure. And I don't know how many people knew this, but this just stays here forever. Like, this is just a permanent addition to the world of Genshin Impact. And man, that is some early game nostalgia for me. I mean, that is like week 1 or week 2 of the game when it originally came out. So it's nice to go back to these sorts of locations and just be like, look how far we've come. Let's read it, shall we? There's some scruffy handwriting on this wooden post. My treasure. How cute! Look, you can stand in it. It's great. If I had Klee, I would bring her here, but I don't own her, so whoops. Another interesting thing about Genshin exploration is that they keep making the central cities of every nation more and more massive, but there's very little percentage of the city that is actually useful to a player on a day-to-day basis, which means that you kind of forget how big these cities are and how many locations there are. For example, did you remember that there's a cemetery at the back of the Mondstadt Cathedral? Because it took me a while to even discover this was here in the first place, and I certainly have not come back here in years. Because I don't think a quest has ever taken us back here. I think there used to be like an NPC here or something, maybe, but I'm not even sure because it's been so long I don't remember. The Chi of Guyun, or as it used to be known, the Chi of Yor, is a quest that is like honestly really iconic if you were here for 1.0. I think that they have made it easier since it originally came out, but back in 1.0 this quest was so difficult, and I remember getting my ass handed to me repeatedly for like days and days and days trying to do this with different characters, and eventually I just had to abandon it and come back a few weeks later when more of my characters were actually built and invested and I could actually do the combat that's in this room. But ever since then, I don't think I've ever been back, and it's hilarious to think back on that moment in which I was struggling to fight like 3 ruin guards and 1 ruin hunter, I think is what the enemies are. Nowadays, that would just be like a regular overworld encounter in Genshin, and the fact that it was such a big deal at the time is so funny. But I remember the community was like coming together, recommending characters and builds and strategies for how to do this quest. And it's honestly a shame, I think, that they have made it easier since it originally came out, because it's nice to have those like early roadblock quests that when you really play the game for a while, you come back to and you realize there was no need for it to be that difficult, and it's just really funny to think about it. Speaking of the Chi of Yore, and speaking of Chinx's Village in general, the walk up to Chinx's Village I still think is one of the most idyllic little paths in the entire game. As you're walking down this path, you start to see these bamboo trees, which are so pretty, and they make this like beautiful bamboo forest. If you guys remember, Baiju's demo video actually takes place in this little bamboo forest. It has one of my favorite demo themes or songs of all time. You actually go check it out if you haven't seen it in a while. But as you go farther into this forest, you see this like beautiful creek with these like rope bridges going over them, and it's just so nice, dude. Like, look at this area. I wish it wasn't raining for you guys, but imagine when it's all sunny and beautiful. And look at this. Look at this. There's this little like hut here, this little house. You just keep going over these bridges, over this beautiful little creek, and eventually you'll get to sort of the entrance to Chinx's Village, right here. For a really long time in Genshin, this area right outside the Noblesse Oblige domain used to be my favorite area in the game. There was this little pool of water, and then there was this sort of outcropping of land here with this big tree on it, and everything behind that was placeholder terrain, because that was the edge of the map. As you can see, the edge of the map just ran right by here and cut all of this off. But now obviously they've added Chenyu Vale, and which is still probably my favorite area of the game so far, and it adds a beautiful backdrop to an area that used to have a really ugly backdrop. And I just love coming back here and thinking about the amount of times that I had to do this domain for a good set of Noblesse Oblige. And I would just sit here and look at this area every once in a while because I was like, it's so pretty, it's so idyllic here. And now there's a giant mountain range behind it, and it just reminds me how much this game has gotten bigger and bigger and how much it's improved, because even when you just look around this area at the old map, you're like, okay, it looks cool, it looks nice, and then you look at Chenyu Vale and you're like, wow, that looks incredible. It looks so nice. And yeah, man, how far this game has come. Liyue was the first region to have a gimmick with its Statue of the Seven, in which every statue, once completed, gave you this little gem thing, and you could climb up and you could put them into these pillars. And there was 7 of them, or 8 of them maybe, I forget exactly. And once you put them all in, this door would open. And I'm sure we all remember this quest, but how many people have actually been into this room since we did it? Because I haven't. And look at it. It's actually so cool. It has been so long since I have been here that Kazari, the NPC who leads you on this world quest, is no longer named Kazari. And man, does this place just remind me so much of that world quest. The Cleansing Sakura quest was probably the first world quest where people were like, oh, Genshin world quests actually can be extremely, extremely good, and Inazuma was definitely the starting region when it came to some absolute banger world quests that we would just get in every region going forward. I mean, in a lot of ways, Cleansing Sakura is sort of like the beginning of the format the game uses to tell us stories about the like Narcissenkreuz, and even a lot of the King Deshret stuff in Sumeru is in world quests, and that all kind of started in Inazuma, and specifically with this quest, which is the one that pretty much everyone did first. And of course, Kazari is a wonderful, wonderful NPC, and it was sad to see her go at the end, and I do not have her mask anymore, unfortunately. I traded it in for the Catalyst billet, so there we go. I don't know how many of you remember that there is a like horrible, poisonous, polluted part of the ocean in Inazuma where the shipwreck is, but maybe you do, because the fish that you can fish here, right here in this spot, are necessary for the catch, which is the like really good fishing weapon you can get in the game. So probably many of us do remember this island for fishing on it, but how many times have you been back since fishing there? Because I don't know if there's any other reason to go back there. It's such a weird little spot. I don't know if there's any lore behind why it's there, but it's an interesting place for sure. One of my favorite places in Inazuma personally are the caves under Yashiori Island. This was like maybe the first example of underground areas in Genshin that are like, you know, like actual areas, not just like a little, you know, like a silly little cave here or there, like an actual expansive underground area. And I remember being like, wow, that's so cool. We haven't gotten caves in this game before. And having a ton of fun, like running around here, collecting all the little chests or whatever else was in this area. I honestly forget. Many of you may remember the Moshiri ceremonial site on Tsurumi Island, or this beautiful hollowed out tree in Mount Kana on Tsurumi as well, which is of course the site for, in my opinion, probably still the best world quest in Genshin, which is the Rue one. This one still makes me so sad thinking about it. But do you remember the caves of Tsurumi Island? Because there is like an extended cave sequence in this part of Genshin underneath these two islands right here. Wow, they actually made a map for it. I'm surprised. Some of the underground sections still don't have maps. This was a place that confused me so bad when I was exploring it the first time because, again, we didn't have maps back then for the underground areas. And I remember running around here trying to find all the loot, and it was so difficult. And I remember this room in particular. I think this room had a one of those chests that have furniture items in them. Tsurumi Island was obviously the first area in Genshin to have those chests. And I believe there was like a tablet puzzle here as well. You had to collect a bunch of tablets and put them here. Oh my god, look at that. I still have the tablets? What the heck? But look, these caves continue, and I'm not going to bother fighting these dudes because who cares. And this place with these murals were all over Tsurumi Island. There was a torch puzzle. I remember being so confused about these torch puzzles. And there's even more caves down here with more stuff to do. I'm not going to go through all of these caves, but I encourage you to do so if you're curious, because this will really bring back some memories. I mean, there was a lot to do down here, and there was a lot to do in Tsurumi Island in general. I'm also just going to give a quick shout out to Enkanomiya as a whole. One of the most gorgeous areas in the game with some of the best lore in the game, and once you finish exploring it, you just never come back here unless you just want to take a walk, but there's genuinely nothing to do here, and I think it is such a shame. My favorite part of Enkanomiya are these like 3 or 4 little green patches that you can find. I think they're so pretty, especially in the very like hostile purple looking world. And there was of course these baptismal vishaps here as well, but like wow, this place is so pretty. It is so nice here. There are so many places in Sumeru that I could put on this list, like Chakram Cave, whatever the heck was going on here at Dev's Cavern. Y'all remember this? I barely remember this, I just found it. But of course, one of the most significant places in Sumeru, which you might have forgotten about or just not visited in ages, is the Land of Grounded Dreams, the end of the Aranara questline. Say what you will about the Aranara questline, I think it's wonderful. And even if you don't like it because it's really long and there's a lot of text, I do think that the story it tells is really, really wonderful. And the ending of it is so emotionally resonant. And just coming back here makes me sad. And this area just in general is so gorgeous, and it's such a perfect place for such a great quest to end. And this tree will always, always make me sad. I mean, just look at it. Oh man. Kaj Nisut is another area of Sumeru that I love. I'm not going to go in there right now because I want to save the surprise for y'all, but I do recommend that you go back in after you do the quest here. There might be some stuff in there that you don't remember and that you might not be expecting. As many of you may know, the desert of Sumeru is genuinely my favorite region of the game. I absolutely love it. And there are so many areas in the desert that I just think are drop dead gorgeous that we never really have a reason to go back to. And even though you might have some bad memories running around these desert areas and this mausoleum area because of the lack of maps back in the day, I do still encourage you to go back and run around with no pressure because, I don't know, I just think this area is sick. I think it's so cool, and I think that it doesn't get the love that it deserves. And there really truly are some gorgeous areas in the desert. I mean, look at this place, dude. What the heck? Do you even remember this was here? And just walking through these underground caves and coming across sites like this is so crazy. The underground temples and buildings that are in the Sumeru desert underground too are just so awesome. They are so freaking cool. And honestly, I could do an entire video on why the Sumeru desert is the best area in the game and sort of preach my truth, but we'll just leave it off with this. Of course, one of the most beautiful places in Genshin, a place that I am sure you have not forgotten. I don't think anybody has forgotten this area, but truly one of the most stunning places to end a questline in all of Genshin. And the entire questline with Jet leading up to this moment makes this reveal so good. So yeah, those were a few areas in Genshin Impact that I absolutely adore, but I don't get to go back to for any real reason other than just sort of sightseeing. There's obviously a ton more areas that are awesome that I could have shown in this video, but I didn't want it to be too long. So let me know what your favorite forgotten areas in Genshin are, and maybe I could make a sort of commenter edition of this video. That would be fun. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it even a little bit, going back and taking a visit through all of these iconic areas of Genshin Impact. And if you did, please like and leave a comment and even subscribe if you want to see more. But that will be all for this video, and I will see all of y'all next time. Later!